Gil, thanks for being with me today. I'm really excited to have you. I want to talk to you today about Iron Nation, the fund you started with your amazing co-founders. But first, I wanted to ask you, how has your last year and a half been since October 7th?
Okay, first, Jacob, it's a pleasure being here. Thank you for inviting me. Uh, wow, what a year. I think the last year, almost 15 months, probably the most challenging year that I had in my lifetime. Um, but I would say on the upside, it's probably the year that I've interacted and met the most significant, impactful people that I met in my lifetime. Um, and with all the challenges and sorrow, a lot of creativity has occurred. And I think looking back, it's unbelievable that what happened in the last 15 months in the context of Iron Nation.
You have a vast background as an entrepreneur, and since the war, you've gone into venture capital. How did you start, and how did you become a VC?
So let's start a bit early. So I was born in Canada, and I came to Israel as a child, and I spent my childhood back and forth between Toronto and Jerusalem. Um, I served in the Israeli Air Force flying fighter planes for 20 years, 10 years full time, 10 years in reserves. I have an engineering background. I have a business background, an MBA from McGill University in Canada. I worked in strategic consulting in North America and Europe for a few years, and then back to Israel. I've been almost 30 years in the high-tech sector, uh, while the last 17 I was an entrepreneur, a co-founder, and a CEO of several startups, different domains. I was fortunate across the recent years to exit a couple of companies. In recent years, I'm spending most of my time around climate, trying to address climate challenges with technological solutions. And for the last couple of years, together with Chen Linchevsky, which is my partner in Iron Nation as well, we had a venture studio where we invested and built young Israeli startups in the climate space, mostly leveraging technology that is coming from the academia in Israel. So Hebrew University, Technion, Weizmann Institute. We were about to open and launch our first two startups when the war broke up October 7th, and then everything changed.
So what changed? You came together and you decided to start a fund. How did that happen?
Um, so the first days, I think like everyone in Israel, everyone was kind of thinking, how could we support the effort, how we can volunteer. So many people went to work in greenhouses in the south. Myself and my two partners, Chen and Jason, were coming from a military background. And personally, I tried to see if I can be in any benefit in the Air Force, but unfortunately, I'm too old, too remote from this for many years. Um, Chen and Jason were in a special operations unit in Israel called Matkal. And Chen's daughter is also serving there. And unfortunately, Matkal has lost October 7th, 9 people were killed. And he found himself going with his daughter from funeral to funeral. In one of the funerals of an officer called Hadar Kama, he kind of looked at the parents that just lost probably the most important thing, parents, similar age to what we are, and looked at them and kind of thought to himself, how can we verify that Israel will outcome or come out of this war a better place, and all the sacrifice that so many people have done here would be worthy. And as people, the three of us that came from many years of experience in the high tech, we decided that the best place where we could actually move the needle is around high tech. In parallel, we saw a lot of our friends enlisted to Gaza initially, many startups that we knew, which were great startups, which were in the midst of fundraising, had term sheets that were pulled, revoked following the war. And we saw in some cases great startups that their operations were hit initially in the south and then the north of Israel. And we decided that the place that we will kind of make an impact is by supporting these startups. I think the next phase was we were trying to understand what is the most significant need with startups. Is it having people support the manpower that was lost? Is it providing any advice or guidance? Or is it on the financial side on funding? And we felt very fast that the key challenge that we see in the market is that many foreign investors have pulled out. And we decided to initiate Iron Nation, which is a venture capital fund, to substitute to some of the of this money, of this funding that is pulling out of Israel.
So how is Iron Nation different from other funds?
Okay, so first, Iron Nation is a fund that was put together following October 7, a few days later. The mission is to support great Israeli startups that were impacted by the war. There was a great sense of community that evolved following October 7th, and we leveraged this and actually brought together almost the entire ecosystem in Israel. It started initially in Israel, very fast it crossed the Atlantic, and we had in North America support. We brought together 48 venture capital funds with almost 100 professionals, general partners, principals to support us. Some of them have a pro bono, so this is all pro bono, a volunteer effort. Some of them are sitting on our investment committee. Some of them are looking at the deal flow and supporting us with deal selection. Our lawyers, Meitar, which is one of the top legal firms in Israel, is providing the services pro bono. Ernst & Young providing services pro bono. Almost everywhere that we touched, people came as a volunteer together to make Iron Nation a success. So first, I think it's very rare to see a venture capital that doesn't take any management fee or carry. By the way, it translates to significant better returns to our investors, because most funds need to take management fee to run the fund and compensate the partners. Here, every dollar that our investors in Fund 1 invested goes to the companies. And in the future, once we have liquidation events, 100% goes back to the investors. So it's a very attractive model. It compensates to some of the additional risk that we cannot ignore that the Israeli high-tech ecosystem has experienced following the war in a war zone. And that's the way that we said, how would we continue to attract funds in a period where Israel is in war?
So raising a fund after war is not easy, and yet you raised $20 million for your first fund. How did you do that?
Dollar by dollar. So yeah, we set a goal to raise $20 million. We managed pretty fast to work with the Israeli Innovation Authority, where they launched a fund that provides matching. So by reaching $20 million, we can almost double the impact with funding that is coming from the Israeli Innovation Authority. So it's almost $40 million. We brought together a very significant and professional group of people. And we did quite a lot of trips to Europe, to North America, to Canada, to US. And we met with people that I would say are sympathetic to the cause. I would even say Zionist. And even though Israel at war, they stepped up and decided to invest and support the ecosystem, which is a great ecosystem, the Israeli high-tech ecosystem, but in very challenging times. So if you look kind of who came, we have a lot of high net worth individuals. We have foundations. We have several venture capital firms that invested in Iron Nation. And I think one of the more interesting ones, we have Jewish federations in North America that invested in Iron Nation for the first time ever, I think, out of their endowment and through their donor advised funds. So we managed to raise both money that came for profit, but also philanthropic money where people are actually donating. We will hopefully multiply, triple, quadruple the money, and it will increase and we will pay it back. It will never go back to the investor as philanthropic money, but it will increase its pool of philanthropic money that they have to donate to whatever cause they want.
You've invested in over 20 companies so far. How do you pick a company?
So it starts with this, that we have over 900 companies that applied for funding. We're concentrating on early stage companies, seed and round A. We're looking at the entire sector, so we are generalists, so we're not sector specific. We decided to focus there because that's where we thought the most challenging area is. Investing in two people in a garage won't make an impact, and investing in later stages, a $20 million fund doesn't have enough capacity to support larger companies. 900 companies, over 900 companies applied for funding, which also shows kind of the magnitude of the challenge of, how many companies are suffering of this challenge. I think almost daily we get emails from founders that are applying, that are sharing with us emails that, it doesn't matter how good you are and how important and what a good team. In many cases, Israel is just out of the space of many foreign investors to invest these days in Israel. But having such a wide effort by the industry and having so many top-tier VCs support us, we kind of divided it by verticals. So let's say we had almost a third of our deal flow, over 300 companies from life science. The three founders here, we do not come from a life science background. So we built a team of general partners from the top health or life science VCs in Israel. They looked in the deal flow. Many of the companies they knew, some of them they said, they were not investment worthy before the war, and nothing changed that. But they kind of prioritized these companies, and the ones that they said are the highest priority, we started a due diligence, which took a few weeks, again with people that are expert in this field. And if the due diligence was successful, we brought it to our investment committee, which met every week. And every week we made the decision which companies to invest in. So it was an effort of many people that came together, very dedicated to the goal, all understood how important it is. And again, everyone done this pro bono.
Tell me about some of the best companies you picked and why.
You can't ask a parent of, who is his best children. So we actually invested to date in 21 companies out of the fund. We will probably write another 3 checks. Overall, we'll have 24 investments until we deplete the fund. We have companies across all sectors, across software, SaaS, life science, deep tech, climate, defense tech, cyber. So it's hard to say best companies. But I can give you some examples of companies that we invested in, maybe interesting stories that are relating to our missions. We invested in a company called With. It's a business to government. It actually sells a platform to municipalities. We invested in another company, Green Eye. They actually had a term sheet from a European venture capital that a few days after the war came back to them and said, look, Israel is out of our realm now. We cannot bring this company to our investment committee and pull the investment. And you need to understand a company works on this investment for many months, and it's a long process. And if at the end of the process suddenly somebody pulls out, this could be devastating news to the company. It could be a company that would fold, that will close. This is an interesting company. They developed a solution for precision spraying of fields, spraying for herbicides. So instead of spraying the entire field with herbicides, they have put on the sprayer of the tractor cameras with AI. They detect exactly where there's a weed, and they spray only the weed. That saves the farmer about 90% of the herbicides. So it's a very fast return on investment. It also saves the planet. So you're not poisoning the fields unnecessarily. You only spray the weed. And we decided to invest. But we said this company needs at least $4 million to reach their milestone. So we said it's pending on building a round of $4 million. The interesting part here is that we are often like a deal maker. So we said, okay, we are the first one. We will step in. We managed to bring existing investors to join as well. The Israeli Innovation Authority that committed money as well. And in high tech, you often see a FOMO, a fear of missing out. So once you have a round, suddenly that entices additional investors. So they had a $6 million that was pulled out away. We managed to build an $8.6 million round, more than they actually had around our investment, which was $750,000. So these are a couple of examples, and I can provide you many more. We just made our 21st investment. It's in a company that is called Medium Well. It's a company in the food tech sector. They were in Kiryat Shmona in the north of Israel. It was hit very hard from the rockets of the Hezbollah, and the entire area there was evacuated. And, young startups have enough challenges building the product, finding the right product market fit, reaching the market, to deal as well with macro, geopolitical challenges like war is very challenging. They had to evacuate their lab. They actually started the lab at the house of one of the workers at the time. And the company received funding from the government, but they needed matching. It was hard for them to reach their milestone during this year where they were all away. And we decided to come in and invest. And the company was about to fall. So if we would not come in, the company would not succeed. This is great technology that I think it's a pity to the world that their technology in the food tech down processing area would not materialize and reach the market. Maybe the last example that I would provide is a company in the north of Israel, in Haifa, called Nurami Medical. They developed a patch for brain surgeons. Once you have a brain surgery, you need to fix the dura layer. And they've made it from an artificial material, from nanomaterial. Again, had a term sheet that was pulled away. We came in. Now the company has an FDA for the product. They are deployed in 12 centers in the US where brain surgeons are using their patch. It's an interesting company because it's a company that employs both Muslims, Jews, Christians, and Druze together. You don't hear a lot of these stories in the media working together with this amazing solution. And the company is doing amazingly well, and we're very, very proud to be part of their journey.
Have you noticed a shift in founder mentality since the beginning of the war?
It's an interesting question. When we look at the founders that managed to make it through this hardship and challenges, and having the team enlisted in Lebanon or in Gaza, and continuing and serving their customers, we have this say in Israel that Israeli startups deliver no matter what. So there was a lot of emphasis of, we're in a war zone and a war period, but we don't want this to affect our customers, our market. So I believe that the founders that managed to succeed through this last year, 15 months, the level of resiliency shows a great indication of how successful they will be in the market. We actually did some research internally in Iron Nation. Unfortunately, Israel has a lot of conflicts over the last decades, and we looked at companies that were founded or got significant rounds in previous conflicts in Israel. And we looked at them 5-10 years later, and you see that some of the top companies in Israel, the jargon is called unicorns. These are companies that are valued over $1 billion, were companies that were actually founded or got significant rounds during conflicts. And I think it's not by chance. It's actually, you see the level of resilience of founders during this time provides a very good indication that they will have the resilience of competing in the market. It's not easy to build a company, that they will work well against competition, that they will overcome challenges that they have in the commercial life, but it's a good indication.
So we're stepping into a new year, and there's a lot that has happened. But what are you excited about moving ahead? What's keeping your drive?
So, as I told you, Iron Nation was a pro bono effort. We're actually volunteering now for almost 15 months. Our plan was to go back to our day job. We were thinking around May, June to go back to our day jobs. But unfortunately, the war has been prolonging much longer than we all anticipated. We see that the need for funding is growing by the day. We always say that, founders are resilient, funding is not. So there's a real challenge around funding. On the other hand, I've been in the high-tech sector for almost 30 years. I've never seen a better time to invest in Israel. So because of there's a lack of funding, valuations are very attractive. Deal terms are very attractive. You can get access to the best deals that, I don't think a year or two ago we could get access to them. So there's a real need, an amazing opportunity. And we were very successful of harnessing sympathetic to the cause money to support Israel High Tech. So we decided a few months ago to continue this effort and actually open Iron Nation 2, which is a second fund. And that's what we're working on today. That is a second fund, a larger fund of $100 million. And I'm happy to share with you that we are reaching these days the first closing of the fund. So we're taking the same DNA and the same mission driven and trying to expand the effort to more and more supporters of Israel around the world, Zionist investors, and to continue and support great Israeli startups. The need is much greater than $100 million, but I think this is our way to support the ecosystem and bring value. And we're very, very excited about this next phase and expanding what we've done in the last 15 months to Iron Nation 2.